for taking your time off on a Sunday morning to come to Buddhist Fellowship. Okay, so I have a confession to make. I don't think I qualify as a Dharma teacher by any measure. It's just that I'm a Buddhist and I know a little bit about money, stock investment and everything. That's why Vita asked me to talk about dollars and cents of Buddhism. So if I say anything that's not right, please pardon me. And so in the course of doing this talk, preparing for this talk, I did a lot of research. And I learned a lot about what Buddha said about dollars and cents and money in Buddhism as well. So if you actually go and Google money and Buddhism, you actually find quite a lot of materials that I'm about to share today. Okay, just a little bit about myself. I was born in a Buddhist and Taoist family in Penang. And then when I was young, my mom would bring me to this temple, and whenever I have a major exam, then we would drop the timetables into this box below the fig tree and pray for good results, and then we will offer like milk when the results are good. So the fact that I'm here, probably you know that like I've done well enough to get admission into NUS, and then I got a scholarship from SPH. So that kind of like strengthened my faith in Buddhism. But then I came to NUS and I was too busy with studies and everything, so I didn't really explore Buddhism. It's only after I started working, then I started attending Dharma classes. And then the first one that I went to, I think, was Ajahn Brahm at Buddhist Library in Geylang at that time. Yeah, and then since then, I've attended numerous meditation retreats, courses, pilgrimages. So I know a little bit more about Buddhism now than before. And so before, when I was slightly younger, then among your circle of friends and colleagues, you don't find that many Buddhists. So I kind of like feel a bit insecure and a bit of inferiority complex when people know that I'm Buddhist and everything. So one time I went to a trip to Malacca, and then it was a tennis trip. And then one of my teammates saw this string on my hand, and then he said, "Oh, so you're Buddhist, are you? So you're Buddhist because your family is Buddhist?" So then I felt a bit indignant, and then I said, "Yes, my family is Buddhist, but I explored Buddhism and I understood what Buddhist is all about, and I chose to remain a Buddhist." Then after that, I felt a bit angry with myself. Why do I have to justify that I'm Buddhist to him? Yeah, so like I said, before that, I was like quite insecure. So now I'm a bit more secure and I know a bit more about Buddhism. Okay, so then a bit about my, as I explore Buddhism, then I found that the philosophy of Buddhism is very much aligned with my personal philosophy as well. Like it's quite egalitarian that all of us has Buddha nature in us. All of us can gain enlightenment if we practice. And then Buddha is not some authoritative figure that decides our fate in afterlife. And and then there's this charter of free inquiry. We are encouraged to like always question and reflect on what the teachings are, and then we see whether it's correct, and then we experience it ourselves. So over time, my conviction as a Buddhist grew. But of course, there are also parts that I struggle with. As Vita said, I'm a aware member as well, so I'm a feminist. So although Buddhism, its prejudice against women is not as bad as in other major religions, there are still certain parts that says the female form is less advantageous than the male form, and then nuns are like junior to monks, and in one order it actually says that the most senior nun is junior to the most junior monk, which I don't find that to be that correct. So I struggle with that part, but overall I agree more with what Buddhism is about than I disagree. So I'm very proud to declare myself as a Buddhist. Okay, so what does Buddha say about money? Okay, before we go into that, we have to establish one fact, and that is Buddhism is a teaching on the attainment of happiness. Okay, the core teachings of Buddha is about the elimination of dukkha, which is suffering, and the ultimate goal is to get out of samsara and the cycle of rebirth and a state of unborn so that we can achieve ultimate bliss. So to achieve that goal, there has to be total renunciation of all things material in this world, right? Only by eliminating our wants, our needs, our attachment to things in this world, especially at the point when we are about to die, about to leave this world, then we will be able to get out of samsara. So that's the higher order of happiness that Buddhists should aspire to. But of course, Buddha is also a pragmatist. He understands that total renunciation for us, for human beings, is very difficult. We are people of desires. We have so many wants. So he is very much aware also that the way the economic system is organized in this world today, that economic stability is actually very essential to a person's welfare and happiness. So he also teaches ways to attain happiness as a layperson, as a householder. Okay, so and then Buddha's prescriptions for prosperity and happiness is always laced with like liberal doses of ethics and significant emphasis on spiritual development as well. So even as Buddha tells us that how we can amass our wealth, he always reminds us that material wealth in this world is but transient. We are in this life for a short while, and when we leave this world, we can't take anything with us. So spiritual development and moral development are requisites for a deeper and happier life. And so for the attainment of ultimate bliss in nirvana or the Western Pure Land, whichever that you may aspire to be. Okay, so now, what does Buddha say about money? In Anguttara Nikaya, there's this banker, Anathapindika. He went up to the Buddha, sat by his side, and then Buddha said to him, "Householder, there are 4 kinds of happiness to be won from time to time by a lay person who enjoys sense pleasures." What are the 4? The first one is happiness of ownership. Ati sukha. So sukha is happiness as opposed to dukkha, which is suffering. 2, happiness of enjoyment. Bhoga sukha. 3, happiness of debtlessness. 4, happiness of blamelessness. Okay, what is happiness of ownership? Okay, this Buddha said is wealth gained by work and zeal, gathered by the strength of arm, earned by sweat of the brow, justly obtained in a lawful way. At the thought that wealth is mine, that I've gained by work and zeal, gathered by the strength of arm, earned by the sweat of the brow, justly obtained in a lawful way, happiness comes to him or her, joy comes to him or her. So in other words, happiness in this context is wealth accumulated through honest work, through right livelihood. It's not wealth derived from like dealing with unethical business in like sale of liquor, poison, or wealth gained from deceit or telling misinformation to people. So in fact, Buddha has stated that wealth of those who amass it without intimidating others, without harming others, it's like a roving bee who gathers honey without damaging flowers and will increase the same way as does an anthill. Put another way, so one should not make money at others' expense, and not at the expense of environment, and not like hurting like illegal logging and all those stuff. So as long as one is able to serve the needs of others, one will be provided for. That's the kind of like universal truth. So 2, what is the happiness of enjoyment, Bhoga sukha? So here, householder, a noble youth has wealth thus gained, both enjoys his wealth and does meritorious deeds. So with the wealth that he has gained from like honest work, lawful means, and then he is able to enjoy the wealth and for his family, for his friends, for all those people in needs, and do meritorious deeds with it. So happiness will come to him or her. Okay, so the Buddha said, a person who spends his or her money in a wise and generous manner on themselves and on their family and others in need, as well as do meritorious deeds, can be compared to a lovely lake with clear, blue, cold, delicious, crystalline water, which lies near a village or a township, from which people can draw water, drink from it, bathe in it, use it for any other purpose. But sometimes, of course, like, people get so caught up in the wealth accumulation, and it causes them to be quite miserly when they have some wealth. So the Buddha has remarked that riches that are not rightly utilized runs to waste, not to enjoyment. And then he compares such a person to a lake of pure water lying in an accessible savage region. Nobody can get that. So there's this story that I heard from one of my Dharma classes, I can't remember where. It's a story of a man in ancient India. So he lived a very Spartan life, and only when he died, people realized that he has actually accumulated a lot of wealth in his house. And then the Buddha explained later that this man, in his previous life, he has given dana to the Sangha. So that gave him, like, he collected, generated positive karma from that, and that's why he was blessed with wealth in this life. But then after he has given the dana, he kind of like regretted it. And then that created negative karma. So this life, despite the fact that he has wealth, he is not able to spend it because of the negative karma. So in giving, we need to have the right intention. So giving with the intention of accumulating positive karma is also not the right intention. Okay, give because you want to share your joy. Give because you think that others can benefit from it. And then always rejoice in the act of giving. Okay, so number 3, the happiness of debtlessness. Here, the householder, a noble youth, owes no debt, great or small, to anyone. At the thought, I owe no debt, great or small, to anyone. Happiness comes to him or her, joy comes to him or her. So this is the happiness of debtlessness. But speaking as a financial advisor in the material world that we live in today, I don't think that all debts are bad, right? Especially in the low interest rate environment. So debt is a way for someone to kind of like afford an asset based on your future projected income. Or it allows somebody to start a business even though you don't have the capital today. So it's a matter of like what's the level of debt that you want to take on. Always like in moderation, right? So as for other forms of debts, like favors that you have accepted from people, good deeds that people have given you, that I think if you can, we have to repay that. So in that instance, debtlessness is happiness. Okay, finally, 4th is the happiness of blamelessness. Okay, here a householder, a noble youth, is endowed with blameless actions of body, blameless actions of speech, blameless actions of mind. At the thought, I am endowed with blameless actions of body, mind, and speech. Happiness comes to him. Joy comes to him. So this is the happiness of blamelessness. So this is about living a faultless life and a pure life without committing evil thought, word, and deed. So of all these 4 happiness, Buddha actually like categorized them into 2 categories. The first 3, 1, the happiness of ownership, 2, happiness of enjoyment, and 3rd, the happiness of debtlessness is 1 category, and the last one, the happiness of blameless life, is the 2nd category. So the Buddha said that the first 3 combined does not even measure up to 1/16 of the last one. So in this case, you can see the importance that Buddha has placed on the moral and spiritual development over the pursuit of happiness arising from wealth in this life. Okay, so then how do we go about like gathering wealth, accumulating our wealth? There's this other person, Digajanu, and then he visited the Buddha, and then he asked the Buddha, Venerable Sir, we are ordinary laymen, enjoying sensuality, living crowded with spouses and children, using Kasi fabrics and sandalwood, wearing garlands, scents, and creams. So would the Blessed One teach us some doctrines which will be conducive to our happiness in this world and hereafter? So here the Buddha gave four pointers for happiness in this life, and then 4 pointers for happiness in the next life. So the first one is, he should be skilled, efficient, earnest, and energetic in whatever profession he is engaged, and he should know it well. So in today's context, it's to be good at what you do and strive to be masters in your own field. 2, he should strive to protect his income, which he has earned righteously through sweat of his brow and strength of his arm, from thieves and natural disasters. Okay, so in today's context, don't be victims to thefts and all the various get-rich-quick scheme or scams, and then, to buy insurance and protect your house or whatever. Okay, 3rd, he must have good friends who are faithful, learned, virtuous, generous, and intelligent, and who will help him along the right path away from evil. And then 4th, he should spend reasonably, in proportion to his income, neither too much nor too little, and he should not hoard wealth, and should he be extravagant. So in other words, he should live within his means, and he must not be unduly elated or dejected in the face of gain or loss. So if you strike a total first prize, don't get overly excited, and you will lose some money in the stock market. Okay, just accept it. Or you get a fine, traffic fine, then just accept it. Okay, so in this part, in one article, it's also elaborated as, a man is advised not to waste his wealth like shaking a fig tree to get one fruit. And in the process of shaking it, it caused all the fruits, ripe and unripe, to fall to the ground and go to waste. So again, in today's context, I see this as like some very rich people, they would pledge their assets, and then they get extra loans from the banks, and then they use the loans to go and buy like structured products and all those stuff, and then structured products that they don't understand. So if those products blow up, they could actually lose a lot of their existing wealth. So so then of course you're not to also hoard wealth and then without enjoying it, and like in the process you starve yourself, you deprive yourself of a lot of things. So this point is about like being very reasonable and sensible about the way and our relationship with money. Okay, and then the 4 virtues to have for the life after. They are Sada, which is faith in moral and spiritual intellectual values. And then 2, Sila, which is the 5 precepts. Abstain from destroying, harming life, and stealing and cheating, from adultery, from falsehood, and from intoxicating drinks. And then 3, Chaga, we should practice generosity, charity without attachment and craving to his wealth. And then 4th, Pana, he should develop wisdom, which leads to complete destruction of suffering and the realization of Nibbana. So this part is about like faith, having the faith in the teachings of the Buddha. Secondly, about following the 5 precepts. Thirdly, about cultivating generosity. And then 4thly, cultivating wisdom, developing your wisdom. So all the 4 kinds of happiness we have talked about earlier, and the 2 sets of conditions, again, you can see that the emphasis is also on spiritual, the balance of material as well as spiritual progress. So this is a Buddha's constant reminder that we need to take care of spiritual welfare even as we go about our daily activities, and in acquiring wealth and pursuing our ambition, and then it acts as a check on humans' greed. The purpose of restraining greed or sense of desire is to develop contentment with less ones. Amassing wealth for its own sake is condemned by the Buddha. Okay, in one occasion, the Buddha said, grass is to be sought by those those in need of grass, Firewood is to be sought by those in need of firewood. A cart is to be sought by those in need of a cart. A servant by him who's in need of a servant. But hate man, in no manner whatsoever do I declare that gold and silver be accepted or sought for. So this means that wealth is to be sought for, not as an end itself, but as a means to an end for attaining various objectives and fulfilling duties. So there are like wider implications that we can see for ourselves. If wealth is accumulated for the sake of accumulation and not shared, and then it's just to satisfy one's own selfish means. Okay, this leads to resentment in society. That's why you see the 99% versus the 1% in Wall Street. You see the French Revolution in the late 1700s. So numerous studies have actually shown that if members of society, if they only care about themselves, if there are big discrepancy between the wealthy and the poor, and then the wealthy don't share their wealth, then people as a whole are less happy, even for the rich people, okay, than those in a caring and sharing society. So one such study is done by Dr. Diener in University of Illinois. So among other things, he found that people have higher evaluations of life when others in the society also have their needs fulfilled. So this indicates that happiness is not just an individual affair. It depends on the quality of life in our community as well. So economic security, if made use of in a correct way, can lead to social solidarity. Happiness can be experienced by engaging in altruistic and spiritual pursuits, which will lead to social togetherness. It's a social contract of sorts that guarantees collective happiness. So Yale professor Amy Chua, in her first book, World on Fire, How Exporting Free Market Democracy Breeds Ethnic Hatred and Global Instability, she shared the story about her very rich Chinese aunt in Philippines, how the aunt was very brutally murdered by her chauffeur and with the help of her servants. So in her book, she wrote about this ethnic conflict that arose when some, especially like the ethnic Chinese in various society, they tend to accumulate quite a lot of wealth. And then they live in the majority, like say, the indigenous people would be of a different ethnic group. So then there's this resentment against the very rich people. So she blamed this on free market economy. So I wonder whether, like, if all these rich people, not just in Philippines or everywhere, if instead of hoarding and flaunting their wealth, they use the money and then they help build community around them, would there still be this kind of resentment in the community that they live in? Okay, then there's an example of Singapore, right? In the last few years, I think the government has been more generous in spending all its reserves on the people, on healthcare, on childcare, on all the social services. So I think today, Singapore is a happier place. Do you all think so? Compared to, like, say, the last general elections, right? Yeah, in fact, there's this World Happiness Report, which was just released this year, and Singapore is ranked 25th happiest country in the world. Okay, so a lot of problems in the world today is actually caused by people hoarding money, those with money hoarding money, and those who want to spend money but they don't have the money to spend. Economist Andy Sear, he wrote a piece a few years back when the market is the economy is recovering from the global financial crisis. He said, for the global economy to function properly, money needs to circulate. A country shouldn't run a trade surplus if it doesn't know how to invest the surplus wisely. A company shouldn't make high profits if it doesn't know how to invest the money. And individuals shouldn't save money if he or she doesn't know how to manage the money. Okay, he quoted the example of Germany. During 2000 and 2010, that decade, Germany actually, like, they sell more goods, so they have a lot of surplus. During that 10-year period, it actually accumulated 1.6 trillion euros worth of surplus. And what did Germany do with the money? it loaned it to countries like Greece, Portugal, and all those. So then it funded all the Greece, the spending beyond their means, right? So now Greece owes Germany this huge amount of money, and Germany may actually still lose that whole amount of money if Greece defaults. So the problem with the global economy, said Mr. Xie, is that those with money don't want to spend it, and those who want the money don't have it. So this applies to like countries with trade surplus and deficits, households that are rich, wealthy, and poor, and then you have the companies, very rich companies, sitting on large piles of cash, and then they are not investing it, and then you have legions of unemployed people. So if a country wants to continue to have surplus, what it should do with the surplus is that it should help invest the surplus in the country that it wants to export to help the country grow, so that they have the purchasing power to buy. Okay, and similarly for companies, right? If they want more demand for their products, then they should pay their workers more. They should invest more to create employment so that the consumers have money to buy the products. So it kind of like create a virtuous circle. So, but in the last few years after the global financial crisis, we've been seeing some positive changes. Only this year, Walmart in the US has said that it will increase the pay for its 500,000 employees. In Singapore, between 2000 and 2009, employee salary actually hardly grew when you account for inflation. It's only in the last few years that you're seeing more growth in the salaries. So isn't it mind-boggling that 2.5 millennia ago, long before Adam Smith and John Maynard Keynes, a wise sage from India called Siddhartha Gautama, the founder of Buddhism, who has gained enlightenment and Buddhahood, thought out such sound economic principles for all human societies, for all seasons to follow, which would promote individual as well as public happiness. He offered the world his own guarantees based on sound reasoning and logic, and his understanding of how human nature is. That if human beings, the community of nations, were to follow his guidelines, the world would be a better place to live and to be born into, where all human beings would possess the capacity to reap the fruits of true happiness, not only for their own individual selves, but for the benefit of the entire human race. Okay, so sometimes Buddha also went into the details of like how to manage your money. In this passage, there's this young man called Sigala, and then he advised Sigala that Sigala should spend 1/4 of his income on his daily expenses, invest half in his business, and put aside 1/4 for any emergency for future use. So elsewhere, the Buddha also taught about how we should do our savings and investments and stuff. So he has 4 points again. 1 point, we should have immovable property, which means that we should have like a roof over our head. Secondly, we should have portable possessions, things that we use daily, right? Our clothes and yeah. And then thirdly, we should have utilitarian possessions that can be a store of value for future use. So in the text, it says gold, silver, money, valuable jewelry that we can keep for like our children's education for future emergency use. And then fourthly, the storing of merits, which is the results of good deed that will follow us not only in this life as a shadow, not only in this life, but also to our next life until we reach our final destination of ultimate happiness. So to recap, the Buddha teaches that while we enjoy material comforts without going to extremes, we must also conscientiously develop spiritual aspects of our lives. While we can enjoy sensual pleasures as laymen, we should never be unduly attached to them to the extent that they hinder our spiritual progress. Buddhism emphasizes the need for men to follow the middle path. So, economic welfare is important for human happiness, but that alone will not guarantee true happiness if it's devoid of an overpowering commitment to spiritual and moral progress. So my feet is numb. So what should our relationship with the money be? As the Buddha has stressed, money is a means to an end, not an end in itself. But a lot of us actually, especially now, consumerism is so rampant, right? In a bid to define who we are, in a bid to find meaning, and we make pursuit of money our life purpose. To the extent that life becomes focused around the desire for money, then it's an ironic reversal of what takes place between means and end. So everything is degraded into mere means to that worthless end, the collection of pieces of paper. So we end up rejoicing not at the worthwhile job done, like or a meal well done, cooked with friends, and hearing the birds sing, the genuine elements of our lives, but to accumulating just pieces of paper. Some of this greed for money is a product of our economic system as well. It's keep emphasizing continual growth to survive, and it's based on not needs but fear, and the feed on our sense of lack. So a healthy relationship with money is one we see money for what it is, not a symbolic way to make ourselves real or to measure ourselves by, but a socially constructed device that expands our freedom and power. Then only we can become truly free to determine our attitude towards it, towards getting it and using it. So for those who do not experience themselves as separate from the world, as they see themselves as interconnected with everything and everyone in this world, then the value of money becomes closely tied to the ability to help alleviate suffering. So a healthy relationship with money is one where we are not overly attached to it, but which we are not afraid of it, and then we know what to do with it. So I've been also attending some classes by Shan, a lay teacher. So I sought his advice on what I should say in this talk as well, and then he gave me some pointers. So I'll end with the 4 points that he gave me. 1, even the richest person cannot bring half a cent to the next life, as karma is only one's baggage. And 2, one who dies with even an unspent cent in the pocket is one who died rich. So as Ajahn Brahm said, always give with warm hands, give when we are alive. 3, what we want is too much, what we need is not much. And then 4, paradoxically, wealth is really yours only when you use it in a richly meaningful ways. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
I'm very sure that all of us agree that it's a very refreshing Sunday talk. Yes, let us all rejoice with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Perhaps we'll keep Sister Ling sitting there for a while and grill her. You know, as a journalist, she's very used to grilling people on the other side. So in this profession, very rare do they get interviewed. So I would like to open the floor now for questions for Sister Ling. If you have any questions, please put up your hand. I'll bring the mic across to you. First question. Come on. Encourage her. Yes, Brother Chan.
Thank you for the enlightening talk. Actually, I have many questions, but I only want to confine to 2 questions, if you don't mind. The first question is that you mentioned earlier part in the talk that most religions are very prejudiced against ladies, although less in the Buddhism. Okay, now that has also caused a split in the Sangha right here in Buddhism, the fact that women are inferior and some monks believe they are not. So what do you think is the reason for this Buddha thinking that women are inferior to men? What do you think is the reason from your perspective? That's the first question.
I don't know. But a lot of the text also at some point it's written down by people, right? So I think whatever we read, we have to use our discretion as well. We have to reflect, and then like the Kalama Suttas, the Charter of Free Inquiry, does it still make sense in today's context? If it doesn't make sense, then yeah, do you want to apply it? Then I think it's always like this questioning process that everyone has to go to, not to take everything as written as like the ultimate truth. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, thank you. Second question is that you mentioned that the earning must not be at the expense of others, as one of the Buddha's teaching, right? But if you look at today's context, this cannot be a case, because when you want to earn money, especially business, I'm not individual, when business want to make money, it is always at the expense of others. I'll just give you an example. If you look at all the third world country, the iPhone, the Samsung, some of these clerks, these people are willing to pay 1-2 years salary to buy just an iPhone, to have an iPhone. And this is caused by a company creating a want of this at the expense of these poor people, you see. So this is happening not only here in Singapore, worldwide, creating a want which is not necessary for people, and that is at the expense of others. So how do you reconcile the fact that business worldwide are creating wealth, making money at the expense of others?
Yeah, but there are also good businesses that do well because they do good. So yeah, there are all types of businesses out there. Whether you want to be involved in that type, then it's up to you. So Buddha's teaching is that you should, not at the expense of others, not to exploit them, not to give misinformation, not cheat, and do it in a lawful manner. Yeah, so it's better if whatever you're doing, whatever you are selling, actually is beneficial for the people. So it's the ethical choices that people have to make every day of their life, even the products that you buy, right? Like, no. Like sometimes, like say Singtel, they provide a service, right? It's communication that people need, that they need to communicate. So they are providing a service. They're not exploiting people. And then say SPH, they give information to people. They try to educate, entertain. So yeah, there are good ways, better ways, and then not so good ways of doing business. So some advertisement is also for information, right? Yeah. So,
and advertisements can also be healthy, because advertisement educate, not just entertain. It's also informed.
Yeah. So I think it's also on the consumer, how you want to discern. You have to exercise your discretion, how you want to consume as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Next question. Yes.
Good morning. I just wanted to find out, as someone who is managing assets, right? Are there any classes of assets or like stocks that you avoid being, as a Buddhist?
Is this a Buddhism question?
Yeah. We try to avoid unethical businesses like the gambling business, alcohol and all those stuff. So we do like legitimate business who have been around 10, 20 years and then providing basic needs to people. Yeah, but our fund is just quite young, like 2.5 years. So we try to be very ethical with our fund as well. Like we don't charge management fees. We only get paid when we deliver returns to investors. So we think that that's more like alignment of interests. Yeah.
Next question. Okay.
Earlier on, you mentioned that you hold a different view on taking on debt when interest environment is low. I think the problem about, I tend to disagree with you, because I feel that when interest environment is low and people are induced to take on debt, right? The things will start to unwind when interest starts to go up. And I think that's what the Buddha is trying to caution people in a sense that when it gets attractive, right, people will have a tendency to take on more debt than they can manage. Yeah.
Correct.
So and this is very evident in, say, the housing bubble, and how bond yields have really gone to, basically nothing.
Yeah,
like
correct.
asset bubbles and that kind of thing. So most people, I think, should be more careful when it comes on to leveraging
Yeah.
when interest rates are
Yeah,
low.
which is
because-
why, I said the level is very important. How much are you exposed? So everything is in moderation, whatever you can afford. So like mortgage rates, if you have 20% upfront cash and then or 30% and then you take 70%, because you know that in the next 20, 30 years you'll be gainfully employed and you'll be able to pay off your mortgage loans, then that I don't think it's a bad debt. Yeah. It's all about degree, right? The exposure.
Yeah, my question, thank you very much, Sister Ling, for wonderful talk. My question is, do you have any insight to share on how to avoid being attached to money? Because I think in today's investment climate, it's very easy to, if you're skillful and you have the right capital reserves, like, many products, you need a minimum investment of 250,000 or something like that, So you get access to assets and products where it's very easy to kind of make a lot of money, and then it's very easy to get trapped into that logic, where money becomes an end in itself, as you're
Correct.
saying,
Yeah.
So what practice can we cultivate in our hearts to see the money as a means to an end rather than an end in itself?
Yeah, I guess you have to have like certain causes that you feel, but when you read the papers and then you get angry at certain things, then that's your cause, right? Then you should like explore a little bit more, and then maybe with your money, and then you can think about ways that you can help the cause that you're passionate about. So yeah, and then you see what other people are doing, where do they need, where are the gaps, and then if you have the resources, then with that aim in mind, like I want to make money so that I can help people in those areas that I'm passionate about, then I think that's one way to, and as you get involved, then you would actually want to help more. Yeah.
What about yourself, Sister Ling? We're curious about the kind of investments that you do to try to balance, the whole desire and of materialism with your spiritual development.
Yeah, so my work right now is, because the fun is I have partners who are running it, so I don't really have to spend too much time on it. And which is why I also volunteer at various places. Aware is one, and then I also volunteer at Kampong Senang. And then I attend various causes to try to understand like origin point medicine, how you can like massage and cure illnesses based on the points in your body and all those. So, okay, how do I invest and how do I deal with money? So, yeah, when at some point you know that actually you will not be able to finish all the money that you have, say, then that's when you should reduce your time you spend on actually making more money, right? And then you should explore more how that money can be put to use. That's, yeah.
Great insights. I think there's one more question.
Yeah, hi, Sister Ling. Thank you for your sharing. And I must say that I bought your first two issues, or Show Me the Money. I think they were good issues. So I'm looking forward to your next book, the next chapter
next
in
book
your
is
life.
out already.
Is that already? Okay, great. Okay, just like to ask, I think you're a fan of value investing, right? Something of your personal domain at the moment, this question. Do you think value investing is as close to Buddhist approach to investment? I'm trying to reconcile, because today is a Dharma class about Buddhism. And because I personally feel that value investing is about looking at quality of management, things like that, intrinsic values, rather than short-term trading, more profit. Do you think value investing is something that is close to your heart in terms of Buddhist way of investment?
Yeah, it's something close to my heart, but one thing I've written about when I relate Buddhism to investing is nothing is permanent. So if a stock price, a company has dropped a lot, then it will not stay that low if there's value in there. So it will recover. And if things have been very expensive and going up and up, it will not continue to go up. So things are fluid, it's changing all the time. So just like our wealth also, it comes and goes. So yeah, I just have to. So in the context of investing, then it's called the mean reversion, right? When it gets too low, then it's likely to revert to the average, and if it gets too high, it reverts to the middle ground. So yeah, so value investing is about trying to buy things very cheap and be very patient about it and just wait, and not too anxious and too kanchiong in selling or be.
Sorry, may I ask another sub question?
Yep, sure.
So is profit maximization objective right, or is it something
Not
that is
profit maximization, but just getting the fair value, right? Like you see what is value, what is cheap, and then just providing like the liquidity that the market needs at that time when nobody wants to buy the stock. Then you provide the liquidity, then you buy it, and then you just hold it. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Last. Oh, okay. I see the banker.
Hi, thanks. Hui Ling, I perhaps I would like you to share with us your view on the very current and dominant, shall we say, phenomenon happening. That's the quantitative easing phenomenon that was started by Mr. Bernanke, right? And it's now seen to be a standard solution to all the ills of the economic malaise that has engulfed the world since. In fact, if you look at it deeper, it's the source of it is really back to what Buddha suggests: is greed and unmitigated, right, craving for more and more. So I think that's relevant to all of us, and specifically to financial. Shall we say, financial experts and the people who make a living out of it. So, to cut a long story short, what do you think, or rather in the context of maybe even Buddhism, or as a prudent, really prudent way to address economic solutions or macroeconomic solutions, is QE really the solution that is now currently played out to be? Or is there a hidden poison that has yet to be revealed down the road? I think if you can share just, I don't expect you to be the Fed expert, right? Even the Fed doesn't know. But since you're here, I think that's very important because it is really hitting on the future, what's the outcome? Because personally, I don't think it's a solution, total solution yet. It's yet to be seen. Please share with us, what do you think are the potential negative effects? Seen and unseen.
Okay, I think so. The problem then was that also if people are more willing to QE, I think the purpose is also to get the money circulating again. So if those people with wealth, they circulate, then we wouldn't have this problem of needing the QE. So QE is another attempt to get money to circulate. So what would be the impact for the average people now that they're doing QE? So money supply will go up, and then if you are keeping your money in the bank and earning just like 0.5% interest rate, then your money will lose purchasing power. That's a fact. So you need to be able to get your money to grow at a compound rate which is higher than the inflation. Yeah, so I think that's the key takeaway for QE.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So if you yeah. So
It's a personal. It's
difficult question.
Yes. Okay. I suppose we are short of time for any more questions. Unless you have any burning questions that are perhaps part of our spiritual development in terms of handling money, you can raise them now. But if you would like personal time to catch up with Sister Hooi Ling and say hello, please, you're welcome to stay on. All right? So next time I'll put you on the stage.
Okay, yes, you see, just now you mentioned Buddha's advice when somebody asked him how to spend your money. Is, if I remember correctly, spend 1/4, invest half, right? And then a quarter put
Spend 1/4,
for
put
a
half
very
for your
rainy
own
day,
living.
right? Rainy. But I'm surprised that since the maximum benefit is donation to the Sangha, he did not mention that, you know. In fact, in other religions, there's always these types that is mentioned, but here it is not. So why is it not mentioned, since it generates a lot of merits when you do that, especially when you donate it to the Sangha?
Yeah. Good question. So I think along the way, he always say that, like, when you have the money, then how do you enjoy your wealth, right? How do you enjoy your wealth? So it's with you, your family, your friends, and people in need, as well as meritorious deeds. So I think he didn't put it down into like a formula for that question. So maybe that young man is just still young in the process of accumulating, and maybe at some stage, then yeah, when he's more secure financially himself, then he should be able to do more. That's, I don't know.
All right. Okay. With that, let us put our hands together and say a great round of applause. And let us all give 3 sadhus to Sister Hooi Ling. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, and for her.